you guys teach students how to leverage social media in a positive way. What does a healthy, powerful, and professional digital footprint look like for a young person today?
It would depend on what they're doing. So age can be a factor, but it's definitely not super. It's important, but it's not an exact science. For example, I have met teens in the work we do, and some of the teens that we have met and the things they are doing on the internet, those teens probably should never have a phone in their hands ever. Now, being said, I've met some elementary school kids who are doing incredible, awesome, professional projects and engagements on the internet that arguably could deserve an opportunity to expand those passions and the goodwill that they're doing. So, yes, age can be a factor, but it's really about the student and their capabilities and their emotional and their maturity level, all important. So what that looks like, if we're looking at like a high schooler, if we're looking at what we taught, that we've learned a lot since 2008. Back even in high school, we were teaching, have a private account, don't share anything with anybody. We've kind of changed a bit. Now what we're seeing with high schoolers, because we know social media is important, is being tracked. If you're a student looking for a scholarship, a grant, a job, or whatever you want to do in your future, people are nosy. There's a human tendency to Google someone's name. And those first impressions can be super important. And, we've talked to university recruiters who said, if a student is showcasing cool things they're doing beyond what they can share in a resume, we'll take a look if they point us in that direction. So when it comes to high school, we often recommend, maybe have 2 different accounts. You have one social media account, which is your professional account. If you're a student who is in the art world, okay, having a portfolio of your past experiences is incredibly important when people are looking for jobs. Oh, you want to video edit for us? Cool. Do you have a sample of the work you've done in the past? So you treat social media like it is a resume to showcase how cool you are, how awesome you are, and the value you bring to the world. And then you can have your second social media account, which is for your friends that you play games on and you have fun. Obviously not doing bad things on that account, because obviously nothing's ever guaranteed to be private, but have 2 accounts and treat one like a resume.
Now, let's get realistic here. If you're putting information out there, even on a private server or an environment that may not be cached by Google, is it realistic to say that an investigative IT company can still find their way to that information, and that big companies are using these strategies to hire when they're hiring people to check these things out, not just what's on their private profile?
Anything is possible. Everything you have to assume is recorded. And again, it does depend on where a young person wants to go in their future, which can sometimes be hard for a teen to decide when they're in high school. But sometimes teens know that, hey, I want to be a teacher when I get older. I want to be in politics. Oof, wish them luck on that one. But some young people, they want to get into that field. Okay, well, things like politics, 100% you are going to have people digging as deep as they can go. If you are a teacher, an educator, you're going to have likely your social media scrutinized. You're probably going to have the students you teach go through your social media. I always get a chuckle because obviously as someone who scrolls and doom scrolls through TikTok at times, I will admit, where I see the trends of teens finding photos online of their teachers when they were in high school, and some of the cringy photos that students have found from their teachers when they were their age. They have their teachers by surprise. Can you sign this for me? And it's their old profile picture from MySpace or Facebook 20 years ago. So things like that, right? Nothing's ever guaranteed to remain private.
And that's my son found my early Facebook or Instagram posts, harmless stuff with the kids and just eating a Kit Kat, saying something stupid like num, num, num. And it was more about them having a complete and utter laugh and trying to, embarrass me, which was funny. But definitely
if you
they're
lean
smart
into
and
the
they will find it.
cringe, if you lean into the cringe, it really diffuses any of those situations. If someone's trying to get a rile out of you because of something online, you lean into it and they go, oh, okay. I'm not getting what I want from this interaction. Great strategy.
I guess the White Hatters advocate for parents to become digital sheepdogs rather than relying on the software to protect their kids. For the parents who are listening to this, who feel completely overwhelmed, it might be the impactful first step, that they want to take. What is that first step a parent should take? What can they do as a mindful dialogue with their child right now, tonight, as a first step?
Number one is curiosity and engagement is a really first good step, especially if you're a parent of a teen. If you're a parent of a much younger kid, so we're talking elementary school age, presence is important. Where if they're on the internet, you're in the same space as them, you're in the same room as them. If they're playing games with voice chat, if you allow that, make sure that you are present and available and can overhear the conversation. Obviously, older teens, they gain more independence. So it's about having proper scaffolding in place. Do you have family policies? Do you have policies in terms of when and how long you deem it as appropriate for your kids to be using social media or spending time on the internet? From what we see here in the White Hatter, we don't have set time recommendations. For example, if you're in grade 4, you need to spend this amount of time and no more or no less, or we don't really have that. But what we do share with families, if a young person has done everything they need to do in the day to have a healthy, balanced life, so they've eaten, they've slept, they've done their homework, they've done their chores, they've socialized, they've exercised. If they've done everything they need in the day to be a healthy, active human person, and they have whatever time remaining in the night for bed, is it really going to be such a bad thing if they spend that time on the internet? Is it really going to be such a bad thing that they play games? And especially if you have scaffolding in place, depending on the age. Now, of course, if a young person's online gaming is now negatively impacting their sleep, their friends, their school, now we have a problem. And now we address it accordingly and we rein that back a bit. So that's sort of the perspective we tend to take. And there has been medical evidence or medical research in regards to kids up to about age 6, at least here in Canada with our Canadian Pediatrics Association, for how much screen time is too much, how much screen time should be allowed up until about age 6. And what I find really interesting about that, it's very difficult to find research or evidence for beyond that age of 6. And I think the answer is because once they get that age 6, we're now talking about elementary school. And now the parent has essentially lost control, because do you count screen time usage as the screens they use in school for learning? Right? So if there's a recommendation for screen time for 4 hours a day, no more, but your kid has spent 2 hours on screens at school, does that contribute to that screen time or not? Or what if a older teen needs to do an online project for school? Maybe the teen is making a PowerPoint for school. And to do that project, to finish it, they're going to need a good 4 hours of dedicated time to build that PowerPoint. But you as a family, you have only allotted that teen 3 hours of screen use at home. Are you going to allow your teen to have that extra hour to finish their school project? And most parents that we get to work with, they tend to go, yeah, I think that'd be okay. Even though we have a 3-hour limit, because it's for school, it's somehow exempt. So again, we view it as, are you having a good experience? And if you've done everything you need in your day to be healthy and effective and productive, so what? You play some games at night. As long as everything else in your life is healthy, I can think of worse things a young person can do in their free time at night.
I guess the bigger ones for me would be social media. So what do you advise when a parent comes up to you and says that like their child is between the ages of, let's say, 10 and 12 or 13, and the kid's like, well, all my friends have got Instagram or have got TikTok. I want to be on TikTok. What's your advice?
We tend to recommend TikTok as most appropriate for starting at age 16. Just because it's the algorithm, because TikTok as a platform, and many platforms are moving in that direction, where you are immediately being fed content, not because you opt into it, because it's what's being fed to you. And I think sometimes when people talk about the algorithm and how more shocking and disturbing content gets shared, my hypothesis is if you're scrolling content and you see something that's shocking, you're going to probably spend a few extra seconds on that video processing it to process the shock. Now, from an algorithm, from a data standpoint, you're probably going to see those few extra seconds of a video compared to all others. So naturally, as an algorithm, you're probably going to interpret that as a video people spend more time on, and therefore you should promote that video to more people. That's, it's not like YouTube, excluding YouTube Shorts, but where YouTube, you generally opt in and you subscribe to the creators that you consent to. There is an algorithm, but it's not as aggressive. You're primarily presented with your subscribed content first. So that's why for me, for unrestricted TikTok use, 16 is probably going to be more appropriate. But if you're in a situation and you're wanting a young person and you're opting in to allow them to use social media, especially kids who are 13, 12, and 10, you as a parent get to manage and run the account. You get the password, you get the login, you enable the parental control features that are available into many mainstream popular social networks, TikTok included, Snapchat included, all have parental features built in. It's just parents don't always use those tools. So that's important. But especially the younger ones, being present, having full access, being able to see all the conversations, super duper important.
And as you said, if the parent, I believe, can take the right approach by working with businesses like yourself, then they can sit, educate, and you said lean in and be with the kids and make sure that they understand why that video is suddenly showing up on their screens, and hopefully teach the child enough. But look, I agree, many social medias should be 16. I don't disagree with that. It's us as parents to learn, understand, and work with our children to educate them, and hopefully that they will do the right thing. For any parents listening, again, just it's about educating yourself. Brendan, yesterday I found one of the sites I go through with the social media safety, there was a feature that Facebook has enabled, something about early camera access. This feature wasn't even presented to me. It was just enabled. And effectively what it's doing is it's saying that Facebook will be allowed to access your gallery and make, better versions of your pictures or give you montages like what YouTube does. I understand it's hard to keep up with this, but that's why I listen to other experts in the field on YouTube and on other platforms so I can learn these things. And I'm the IT guy.
Yep. Yeah. It was easier when it was just MySpace or just Facebook. There was one site. Yes, it had its security problems back in the day. It was simpler and easier to manage. Now parents are having to understand the settings and features on all the other social networks. So I understand that reality. And of course, our job here is to guide them, point them in the right direction, and give them resources when available.
I think something you mentioned previously, which I love, was it's common sense. I am going to give my child that extra hour to do that study because it's not like they're gaming. And as you said, if that child takes advantage and has finished their homework in 20 minutes and has 40 minutes to play games, well, then it's up to you as the parent to decide whether that's a battle you want to have, or listen, I'll let it slide this time with a warning if I catch you out, but next time, well, then that's on you.
Yeah, it's not just common sense. It's also, I like to view it as reason and logic, right? For me, I think that's more than just common sense. And I think that's the important part, because common sense will mean different things to different people. Reason and logic, there's math behind that. And that is harder to argue against.
If a teenager is listening right now and they've made a mistake, they've shared something they regret, or they're being harassed, what is your immediate critical advice for them in that moment?
First step, obviously, is to remove the content that is damaging to begin with. If you can't remove it, you can begin to bury it. You can't get rid of it altogether, but you can make it harder for people to find and then use against you. So you can beginning to flood the internet with more positive things about what you're doing. So research on you or looking you up, immediately they see the good stuff compared to the bad. And thankfully, having done this now for quite a while, we are seeing millennials who are now getting into those HR positions, millennials having to learn the internet, engage with social media in its very beginnings. I am seeing a lot more forgiveness than what used to happen, where criticism online, it depends where you want to go. Criticism increases in certain spaces, but I think overall, if you do something silly in the past, that was held more against you. But today, I think people are a lot more forgiving. However, if you're going into politics, different story. Very different story. Industries where everything is scrutinized with a fine-tooth comb. So if you have an idea, most students aren't going into that field. But if you're a student and you want to go into government, you want to go into law enforcement, well then yes, there's going to be a higher standard of scrutiny. So, but if you know that's something you don't want to do, just general corporate environments, it is more forgiving.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess on that note, for the professionals and future leaders that are listening, what is the one digital habit they should adopt today to protect themselves from the ghosts of their digital past?
Account management. Most issues we see today with working professionals, hackers and scammers, which do exist, but you buy a computer off the shelf. Most of the security challenges are relatively solved for most consumers. Where we see most problems is user account management. So doing an audit, double check, I think, number one, are you using the same password? That's a big one. Maybe doing a data breach checkup on yourself. Put yourself into have I been pwned? Has your data been leaked that we know of? Should you take steps to minimize and mitigate that? Using password managers can be helpful as well to ensure that you have different passwords for your accounts, but also ensure that your emails are secure. Because we are seeing now, even with kids, hackers, scammers, exploiters, they're not really going for individual accounts or TikTok accounts. They're really wanting the golden account, which is your email. I would say your email, your corporate email, your personal email are probably the most important accounts you'll ever have in your life. Even more important than your bank. People think their bank account is their most important account. But if you forget your bank password, you get a password reset sent to your personal email. So if someone's in your email, it's game over. I'm sorry. That is one of the worst things to help people through, because sometimes there is no coming back. Because trying to convince a social network or any other account that that email wasn't you, or you didn't send the email, even though your email is your identity. Yeah.
So identity management is the key to protecting yourself.
Yeah. If you're going to turn on two-factor authentication for anything, at the very least, make it your email. And don't use text-based two-factor. That's a whole other conversation. Use the two-factor apps and make sure the app has a backup to it. If you do that, even if one account gets hacked, as long as your email is safe and secure, you're probably going to recover.
It's a password manager technology is something we push heavily at the moment. But even then, as you suggested, we teach them how to make those backup codes to get in as a second factor, or their passwords, because it's an encrypted pass system, meaning if you lose access to that, no one can recover it for you. There's no backup, you're done. So yeah, that's the way to go. So looking ahead at the rise of AI, deepfakes, and immersive digital worlds, what is the next frontier of digital safety that you're preparing for?
I think what we're looking for is going to be AI to fight AI misuse. I think that is our future and solution. I know right now there are AI detectors which have various degrees of success and reliability, but in a perfect world, and I think we need to wait a couple generations for our AI chips on our phones to get powerful enough to do it. But I think in your browsers, we should work towards having AI detectors in your browser by default. And what I mean by that, if I'm looking at a picture and I want to know if it's real or not, I have to copy the picture, have to save it, upload it to a whole separate website to do a scan of it to determine if it's real or fake. I would love for that to happen automatically, where in your browser, you're scrolling through, much like how there used to be the lock icon, like I mentioned earlier about HTTPS, about security certificates, and how I think Google now doesn't even show the lock icon because there's no point of that anymore. Maybe replace that with like an AI icon, where your browser is now automatically scanning for AI content that can now inform you in real time the likelihood of what is AI and what is organic. I think that would be a really good solution. And I have not yet seen a solution for that. And I do think it's because we need more processing power locally on our devices to do all that work. But hopefully, we're getting there soon. Thank you. Most of our stuff we do share on our website, thewhitehatter.ca, as we are proud Canadians. We have our resource page, and most of all our stuff we share on all our different platforms are sourced from our main resource page. Honestly, half of my time is educating in schools. I feel like the other half of my time is working on free resources. We put a lot out there. So yes, YouTube is a growing focus of ours. We've heard from parents that, yes, they like reading guides, but I think most of the market, the population, if you will, do prefer to learn from videos. We're a small team of like 3 people. I need more of me, but yes, YouTube's good, The White Hatter, and then our website, thewhitehatter.ca. Pleasure, anytime.